The WWE Universe is still struggling to process the earth-shattering twist that unfolded before their very eyes, a moment that didn't just shake the foundation of a single storyline but potentially altered the trajectory of the entire company for years to come, because Jey Uso, a man who has stood in the thick of family wars, who has endured countless battles under the banner of loyalty and blood, has now committed what many are calling the most shocking, calculated, and controversial act of his career. This wasn't the slow burn of subtle hints or cryptic teases, this was a loud, unapologetic severing of ties, a public rejection of the very empire that gave him his identity, and it came at a time when the bloodline was already splintering under the weight of internal rivalries, outside threats, and the kind of betrayal that cuts too deep to ever heal. The seeds of this moment were sown in chaos, because everything changed the night Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed cornered and decimated Roman Reigns in a vicious and unrelenting onslaught that left the tribal chief sprawled out, broken, and humiliated on the mat. The attack was the kind of violent statement that could end a career, and when the dust settled, one man's absence from Roman's side was impossible to ignore: Jey Uso. For weeks after that ambush, WWE fans flooded social media with theories and demands for answers. Why didn't Jey run to his cousin's aid? Why wasn't the man who once fought through blood, sweat, and tears to protect the family now doing everything in his power to defend it? Some speculated fear: after all, Seth Rollins' new faction wasn't just dangerous, it was practically untouchable. Others whispered that Jey was biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to make an impact. But nobody, absolutely nobody, was prepared for the real answer. When Jey's entrance music hit tonight, the reaction was deafening. The crowd rose to their feet, anticipating a speech of solidarity or a promise to avenge Roman's brutal beating. There was an expectation in the air, almost a hope, that this was the night the Usos would rally the bloodline back to dominance. But from the moment Jey stepped through the curtain, everything felt different. Gone was the signature swagger, the playful energy, the glimmer of family pride. Instead, Jey walked with a slow, deliberate pace, his face etched with a cold, unflinching intensity, his eyes locked on the ring like a predator zeroing in on its prey. Inside the ring, the atmosphere shifted into an eerie stillness as the music faded and the lights dimmed. The audience hung on every breath, waiting for him to speak, and when he did, his voice carried the weight of years of resentment. "Y'all want to know why I didn't help Roman? After all the years of abuse, after the mind games, after he made me question who I was as a man, nah, that man got exactly what he deserved." The words hit like a sledgehammer, and you could feel the gasp ripple through the crowd, a mix of shock, disbelief, and even a hint of grim satisfaction from those who had long wanted to see Roman humbled. But Jey didn't stop there, he drove the blade even deeper. Bloodline is dead. Solo's out there pretending to be a gangster with his little crew. Roman's somewhere crying about his throne. And me, I'm finally free. You hear me, Roman? I owe you nothing. The sound of the microphone hitting the mat echoed like the final nail in a coffin, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, almost as if the universe wanted to twist the knife even further, Seth Rollins' chilling laugh filled the arena, dripping with the smug satisfaction of a man who knew he had just witnessed the first domino fall in what could be the destruction of the bloodline once and for all. This moment is more than just another betrayal in WWE history, it's the culmination of years of complicated family dynamics, emotional manipulation, and personal struggle. Jey Uso has always been the emotional heartbeat of the bloodline saga, the loyal soldier who fought not just for dominance but for validation, the first to defy Roman's rule yet somehow always pulled back into the fold. But now, this is not a man torn between love and duty, this is a man who has scorched the earth behind him and declared, with absolute certainty, that the bloodline is over. And the ripple effects are going to be massive. Solo Sikoa is already attempting to reforge the bloodline in his own image, a more ruthless, unrestrained version that doesn't answer to Roman's vision. Roman Reigns, once the untouchable tribal chief, is at his most vulnerable, both physically and psychologically. Brock Lesnar is lurking in the shadows, a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. CM Punk is on the warpath, his own vendettas threatening to intertwine with this family implosion. And now, with Jay seemingly breaking free, the power dynamics in WWE have never been more unstable. The questions are endless. Has Jay struck a secret deal with Seth Rollins? Is this the beginning of a new faction, one built on the ruins of the bloodline? Or is Jay on a solo mission to carve his own path, free from the chains of both family and enemies alike? The one thing that's certain is that this isn't just a feud, it's a seismic shift in the WWE landscape. The alliances that form in the coming weeks could change everything, and the betrayals that follow could redefine what loyalty even means in this business. The bloodline may be dead, but the war that follows its collapse is only just beginning, and it promises to be the most unpredictable, brutal, and must-see chapter WWE has unleashed in years. The WWE Universe is still reeling from a seismic shock that has sent tremors through every corner of the wrestling world after Jey Uso, a man whose career has been defined by loyalty, family pride, and the shadows cast by his tribal lineage, made what can only be described as the most controversial and career-altering decision of his life. This wasn't a minor disagreement or a subtle hint of tension. This was a calculated, public, and devastating rejection of everything the bloodline once stood for. It all came to a head after Roman Reigns, the tribal chief himself, was brutalized beyond recognition by Seth Rollins' faction in a ruthless and unrelenting attack that left the head of the table lying in ruins on Raw. In the weeks that followed, speculation ran rampant. Fans demanded answers, the WWE locker room buzzed with whispers, and analysts tried to piece together why Jey, the man who once put his body on the line for Roman, stood by and did nothing. Some wondered if he was afraid of Seth's faction, which now included Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, two powerhouses capable of dismantling anyone in their path. Others believed Jey was playing a long game, quietly waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But tonight, the speculation ended. In an atmosphere so tense you could feel it in the air, Jey Uso's entrance music hit, and the arena exploded with anticipation. The crowd was expecting a rallying cry for Roman, a vow to restore the family's dominance, or at the very least, a declaration of vengeance. Instead, what they got was a cold and calculated verbal dagger aimed directly at the heart of the tribal chief. Jey emerged from the curtain without his usual swagger, his face devoid of emotion, his eyes locked on the ring with an expression that spoke of deep resentment and years of pent-up rage. When he finally stepped inside the ropes, the music faded, the lights dimmed, and a heavy silence gripped the building. Then, in a voice dripping with venom, Jey addressed the question that had been haunting fans for weeks. Y'all want to know why I didn't help Roman? After all the years of abuse, after the mind games, after he made me question who I was as a man, nah, that man got exactly what he deserved. Gasps erupted from the audience, some in disbelief, others in stunned agreement. But Jey wasn't finished. He pressed forward with surgical precision, cutting deeper with every word. Bloodline is dead. Solo's out there pretending to be a gangster with his little crew. Roman's somewhere crying about his throne. And me, I'm finally free. You hear me, Roman? I owe you nothing. With that, he let the microphone fall from his hand, the echo of its thud resonating in the tense silence that followed. Then, like a perfectly timed exclamation point to the betrayal, Seth Rollins' sinister laugh poured from the speakers, twisting the knife and suggesting that perhaps this wasn't just a moment of personal liberation for Jey, but the first move in a much larger and more dangerous alliance. This is not the Jey Uso who reluctantly fought against Roman only to come back under the family banner. This is not the wounded soldier in the tribal chief's army. This is a man who has burned the bridge behind him and is standing on the ashes with no intention of looking back. The questions now are endless. Was this betrayal brewing all along? Has Jay aligned himself with Seth Rollins to finally destroy Roman once and for all? Or is this the beginning of a new, darker, and more personal rebellion that will reshape WWE's power structure entirely? With Solo Sikoa carving out his own version of the bloodline, Roman Reigns at his most vulnerable, Brock Lesnar lurking in the shadows, and CM Punk on the warpath, Jey Uso's declaration might be the spark that ignites an uncontrollable firestorm. One thing is certain, this betrayal doesn't just mark the possible end of the bloodline, it could be the beginning of a new era where blood ties mean nothing, respect is earned only through dominance, and every alliance is a weapon waiting to be turned. The road ahead is unpredictable, dangerous, and absolutely must-watch television. And if Jay's vision is as ruthless as his words, then WWE in 2025 is about to enter its most explosive chapter yet.